Hello, I'd like to talk to you all about miracles today. So just to let you know, a miracle is a single event or experience which in a moment of time has changed your life or the course of your life from what it was to where it is now. There are no order of difficulties in miracles, and there's no such thing as a miracle being really big or too small. A miracle is just a miracle. So what miracle has happened in your life?
I guess I was working for the city. We're going back about 20 years now, and I was working in a contract section for the community development department, and I was asked to provide some technical assistance on a crisis the organization was having. And in the course of that work, I met a guy named Raul, and I won't mention his last name because if he sees this, he'll be all embarrassed. But he and I worked together on a particular aspect of this project, and in the process of that, we got to know each other pretty well and became really good friends. And about 8 months later, the guy I was working for at that time decided to retire. And Raul took over this guy's job. So we pretty much had a rapport. And Raul was one of these guys who was a real progressive thinker, but a lot of my co-workers were somewhat reticent about making changes, and Raul wanted to do a lot of new stuff. And he recognized in me a kindred spirit. And one day he asked me to, he wanted me to become the statistician for the area we were in and start collecting statistical information about the kinds of work we do and that sort of thing in order to measure the processes and improve what we were doing. And at the time I thought it was kind of a wanky idea. I remember I thought, really, I mean, what's this about? But in the course of doing that, I learned a lot, and I learned, it introduced me to this concept of total quality management, TQM, and I began to look into it and how important it was to ask the right questions about what you do and why you do things. Now, at the time, it didn't seem like a big deal, and it didn't seem that important. But as it turns out, as time went on, it became a valuable resource in the organization. Then, I guess I'd been doing that sort of work about 6 or 8 months, maybe a year, and the risk manager for our department retired. And Raul asked if I would take over this guy's job for part of the time. And I had no idea. I said, well, I don't know anything about insurance and risk management. What's that about? And he said, look, Rick, just try it. You'll like it. So I said, okay, and I did. And I took over this guy's job, and it turned out he'd had a nervous breakdown. The job really stressed him out. And I did okay in it. I learned a lot. Now, at the time, it didn't seem that important, but in 1994, my wife and I decided to move to Australia, and I was out of work. And if I hadn't done those particular 2 jobs, one as a TQM guy and one as the risk manager, I wouldn't have been able to walk into a job which required somebody with a background in risk management and TQM. And I walked into this job, and I worked there for 12 years afterwards, and I know it was because of Raul. And these are 2 things I didn't want to do. I kind of dragged my feet on stuff anyway. I dipped a toe in the water before I ever jump in, but this guy sort of insisted I just jump in. And it was a miracle for me, because I would have been out of work forever, probably. And so I guess that's my story.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what about you, Miss?
Okay, my miracle story starts in 1991. Summer of 1991, I was a very young mom. I had just turned 21, and I had a little boy. He was about 10 months old at the time. And back then, I think car seats were recommended but not mandated. So I remember finally deciding, he's moving around too much in the car. He really needs to be restrained. And I didn't have the money for a car seat. Back then, a car seat, could have costed a lot of money. And I was a very young mom and working as minimum wage as much as I could. And I walked into a swap meet, and it was all stuff, I guess used things that they were selling. And I found a car seat, and this lady sold it to me for $5.
Wow.
So, so I was very happy with my car seat. You know, it was actually appropriate for him because he was already kind of moving around. He started walking early, so it fit perfect. And from then on, I moved on. Everywhere I went with my little boy in his car seat and looked very cute in the back. Anyways, the years went by. It was now 1995, and I had my daughter by then, and she was at the time about 8 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually my birthday. My husband and I and my daughter only, because my son was in kindergarten, went to a restaurant to celebrate, for lunch, to celebrate my birthday. We went to go have Indian food. As we were leaving the restaurant, we got on the freeway on the 605 freeway in the Cerritos area, and a car came into my lane and crashed into me, and it was a pretty severe car accident. We
Wow.
rolled over several times.
Wow.
I was injured pretty badly. The car ended up on the other side of the freeway. We crashed into the center divider. I lost consciousness. I was out for about 3 days. And it was an extremely severe accident. I was rushed to Long Beach Memorial Care because they had a burn unit. I was injured on my arms pretty badly. They were considered third-degree burns, and it was just, sliding on the asphalt as the car is rolling over.
Mm-hmm.
I had a pretty severe concussions as well, and so it was a pretty severe accident. And as we're rolling over, and I wake up 3 days later, the first thing that came to my mind was, of course, my baby. She was sitting in the back, and basically this little $5 car seat saved her life. I was still using it, so she was restrained on her car seat, this used $5 car seat, as we were rolling over, and all she had was a tiny little bruise of something that hit her as we were rolling over.
Wow.
So that's my little miracle story, and
Thank you.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you, both of you, very, very, very
Welcome.
much. I appreciate it.